It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday afternoon, just me, my gear, and a routine storm watch assignment. Nothing out of the ordinary. But that all changed when a call came through our emergency scanner that made my heart skip. Someone had cut the wires to the town's tornado siren system. In the middle of a severe weather alert the voice on the radio was panicked, and the location sent a jolt down my spine. It was Maple Ridge, a suburban neighborhood notorious in local circles for one thing: the HOA president, better known as Karen, by almost everyone who lived within a 3-block radius. Karen wasn't her real name, of course, but around here, it stuck because of her over-the-top obsession with rules, control, and making sure her version of peace and quiet reigned supreme. She once fined a family for putting up Halloween decorations before October 1st. Another time, she threatened legal action over a kid's lemonade stand. But today's stunt, if what I heard was true, she had crossed a line none of us thought possible. I threw my camera bag into the back of the satellite truck, fired up the engine, and headed straight for Maple Ridge. The skies were already turning that eerie greenish-gray color. The kind of sky that makes your stomach knot up, even if you've seen 100 storms before. As I pulled onto Maple Street, the first few drops of rain hit the windshield, and I could see flashing lights up ahead. Fire trucks, a police cruiser, and a small cluster of residents in raincoats shouting over the rising wind. I jumped out, grabbing my mic and camera, and pushed toward the crowd. That's when someone pointed to the community center roof and said, she climbed up there with wire cutters. Said the siren was disturbing her peace of mind. I looked up, trying to piece together what could drive someone to do something this reckless. But before I could get my camera rolling, a deep rumble echoed across the sky, and then the power flickered. What happened next, even I wasn't ready for. The power blinked out completely, and a strange hush settled over the neighborhood, broken only by the wind and the low grumble of thunder in the distance. The emergency lights from the fire truck cast a red glow on the soaked pavement. People were nervously looking up at the sky, whispering, checking their phones, except the weather app wasn't loading. No signal, and the town's emergency sirens, the only real warning system in this part of the county, was still dead silent. I scanned the crowd, looking for someone who could confirm the story. That's when I saw Mr. Hargrove, an older guy who lived 2 doors down from Karen. He waved me over and leaned in close, speaking just above a whisper. "She snapped," he said. "Told the city council last week that the sirens were causing her anxiety. Filed some formal complaint. They ignored her, so she took matters into her own hands." I couldn't believe it. Karen had always been strict, sure, but to physically climb onto the roof during tornado season and destroy public safety equipment, that was a whole different level. According to Hargrove, she came out earlier that day, just before the storm watch alert was issued, dragging a ladder across her lawn like she was headed to prune some hedges. No one thought twice. But 10 minutes later, people started noticing the sirens weren't testing. No weekly wail, no alert tone, just silence. One of the firefighters told me they found the wires cleanly cut. Whoever did it knew exactly where to snip. And Karen, she had vanished before emergency crews arrived. No sign of her car, no trace of her in the house. It was locked tight, curtains drawn. As we stood there, the air got heavier. A low, steady hum started to roll across the open fields nearby, the kind of sound you feel in your chest before you even register what it is. I adjusted my camera and looked toward the horizon. A deputy pointed out past the treetops. "There's rotation forming," he said, "and we've got no sirens. Still no Karen, no alerts, no way to warn the rest of town." Rain was coming down harder now, soaking through my jacket as I tried to keep the lens steady. I wasn't just covering a weather story anymore. This was turning into something else entirely. A whole town was on edge, and the woman at the center of it all had just vanished. I kept thinking about how calm she always seemed at the HOA meetings, sitting straight-backed with a clipboard, handing out fines like candy. Now that same person had allegedly sabotaged the tornado warning system with wire cutters and disappeared into thin air. Neighbors were talking in hushed tones, some angry, others genuinely scared. One woman, Jen from Elm Street, told me her kids were home alone because she ran up to grab supplies after the weather alert popped up on her phone. She had no idea the sirens weren't working until a friend texted her in a panic. If something hits, they'll have no warning, she said, wiping her eyes with a damp sleeve. All because Karen wanted it quiet. As the wind picked up, I stepped away from the crowd to check the radar feed in the truck. Nothing was updating. Satellite signal was weak. I tried the emergency band again, and that's when another voice broke through the static. Dispatch was reporting possible funnel clouds about 8 miles out, moving fast. No confirmation yet, but the tone was urgent. This thing was real, and it was closing in. Then I caught something odd on the edge of my shot, someone darting behind Karen's garage. I grabbed my camera and jogged over, careful not to slip on the wet pavement. A teenage boy, probably no older than 16, stood frozen near the hedges. "Hey," I called out, and he jumped. "You know her?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "She's my aunt," he said. "She told me to stay inside, but I think she left something in the basement, something she didn't want anyone to find." Before I could ask more, another loud crack split the sky, and branches started flying across the lawn. People were screaming in the background. The deputy yelled for everyone to take cover. But I couldn't stop thinking, what was in that basement? And where had Karen gone? The wind was howling now, carrying leaves, loose trash, even bits of siding down the street. People were running for shelter, some into basements, others to the community center where the generator had just kicked in. I kept the camera rolling, heart pounding, trying to stay steady. The teen stood beside me, clutching his phone, but clearly torn between fear and something else. "If there's something in that basement," I said, "we need to see it now. We may not get another chance." He hesitated for a second, then nodded and led me around the back of Karen's house. The back door was locked, but he pulled a key from under a fake rock near the steps. Classic Karen, obsessed with HOA rules, but still hiding her spare like any neighbor. Inside, the house was dark except for flashes of lightning that lit up the living room in pulses. The furniture was perfect, spotless, staged like no one actually lived there. We moved quickly to the basement door. The teen flicked on a flashlight, and we stepped into the stairwell. The smell hit first. Old paper, dust, something else too, like burned plastic. We got to the bottom and my breath caught. It wasn't a storage basement. There were diagrams pinned to the walls, schematics of the town's siren grid, emergency frequency maps, even blueprints of the satellite tower just outside city limits. Stacked beside them were boxes of tools, wire cutters, power packs, and a laptop still running, its screen blinking with code. She hadn't just cut the sirens, she had mapped them, studied them, planned it. Suddenly, the teen whispered, "This wasn't about peace and quiet. She's trying to prove something." A loud thud above us made us both freeze. Someone was in the house. I signaled to cut the light. The wind outside sounded like it was pulling at the roof itself. I could hear footsteps overhead, slow, deliberate. Not the storm, not random. Someone was back. Either Karen had returned, or someone else had figured out what she was doing and came looking for the same answers. The air in the basement was thick with tension. We didn't know if we were trapped, or if we had just stepped into the eye of something even bigger. The footsteps paused just above us, right near the top of the basement stairs. Every creak of the floorboards felt like it was directly over my head. I held my breath, gripping the camera tightly, its little red light blinking in the dark. The teen slowly backed up, almost stepping on a coiled extension cord near the shelves. We didn't know if it was Karen or someone else, maybe law enforcement, maybe someone who had caught on to what she'd done and come to stop her before she made things worse. Then, without warning, a low voice called out from the top step. "I know you're down there." It was calm. Too calm. Not panicked, not angry, controlled. That voice didn't sound like a neighbor or an officer, and it definitely wasn't Karen. The teen's eyes went wide. "That's not her," he mouthed. I looked around for anything to hide behind, then noticed something strange. Next to the blueprints and siren schematics, there were drone parts. Motors, spare propellers, small cameras, a row of remote controls on a shelf. Suddenly, it all clicked. Karen wasn't just protesting the sirens. She had been testing something that could disable the system remotely. This was bigger than a rogue HOA president with wire cutters. This was premeditated. The voice above shifted. "You shouldn't have come here," it said. And then the basement lights flickered on. Not the house power. These were battery-powered floods. We were exposed. The teen reached for the laptop, trying to shut it. "My uncle helped her," he whispered, panic rising. He said the sirens weren't safe, but the government was lying about their purpose. They'd built this setup to prove a point, said it was a test run. Before I could press record again, we heard the door creak open upstairs, and then a new sound, faint but unmistakable. A second set of sirens, ones we didn't even know were online, starting to wail from the far edge of town. A different tone, not local. The teen froze. "That's not ours," he said. "That's military." Whatever Karen had triggered, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The military sirens echoed through the wind like a warning from another world. Lower, heavier, not meant for a town like ours. The teen and I locked eyes. Whatever Karen and her test run was, it had triggered something far beyond what anyone had expected. I reached for my mic, whispered a quick update into the camera, but before I could say more, the basement door flung open. A man stepped into the light, soaked from head to toe, wearing a windbreaker with a faint patch that read Civil Comms Oversight. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at the laptop, the schematics on the walls, the kid beside me. Then he stepped forward, unplugged the laptop, and calmly said, "You weren't supposed to find this." The teen shouted, "Where's my aunt? What did you do to her?" The man paused. "She's being detained. She broke federal communications law the second she jammed the secondary grid." He looked straight at me. "That laptop you were filming, it's part of an ongoing national security case. And if you broadcast any of this, you'll be interfering with it." That's when it all came crashing together. Karen hadn't just wanted peace and quiet. She believed the town's siren system was part of a government surveillance network. She wasn't entirely wrong, either. Buried in the tech, mixed with the warning signals, were frequencies tied to old Cold War-era defense protocols. Her experiment had crossed into restricted airways. That second tone, it was an automatic failsafe designed to activate when tampering was detected. Outside, the wind reached a roar. The funnel cloud had touched down just outside town. We ran for the community shelter. As we got there, emergency responders started flooding the streets again, this time with federal vehicles quietly backing them up. The sirens were back on, but the signals were different. In the end, the tornadoes spared most of the neighborhood. No lives lost, just damage. But the bigger storm, that came after. My footage, scrubbed, official request. And Karen, gone, no charges filed, just relocated. Weeks later, I got an unmarked envelope with a flash drive inside. No name, just one clip. Karen, standing in her basement, saying, "They'll hear the real signal soon, and when they do, they'll understand." It's been a few months since that day, and Maple Ridge has slowly settled back into its routine. The sirens were repaired, at least the ones we're still allowed to see. A few of them were replaced with newer models, quieter ones, sleek, almost too quiet. The community center now has a permanent backup alert system, funded anonymously, and the town council has suddenly stopped taking public questions about signal interference. Karen was never seen again. The teen, her nephew, moved away with his parents not long after, but before he left, he handed me a notebook. Inside were pages of her notes, not just on the sirens, but on weather patterns, radio towers, and a list of other towns where similar tests might have been run. Some crossed out, some circled. Whatever Karen was chasing, she believed it went far beyond Maple Ridge. As for the flash drive, I never aired that clip. Not because I was afraid, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, but because sometimes it's what doesn't go on record that says the most. That one sentence stuck with me. Asterisk, they'll hear the real signals soon. Asterisk, what was it she thought we were missing? Was it just paranoia? Or did she know something we weren't supposed to? Looking back, what started as a bizarre storm watch story turned into something far more complicated. A tornado siren sabotage, a satellite truck arriving just minutes too late, a woman branded HOA Karen trying to expose what she thought was the truth, and maybe in her own strange way she did. So yeah, the sirens are back on. The lawn rules are still strict, but now when that eerie tone cuts through the sky, people don't just check the weather. They look around just to see who else might be listening.